When we think of cannibals, we usually imagine isolated tribes in the Amazon or horror movies. We definitely don't think of the royal families of England or the refined doctors of the Renaissance. But for over 300 years, the rich and educated people of Europe were obsessed with eating human flesh. They drank blood to cure epilepsy, ground up skulls to stop headaches, and, worst of all, ate thousands of ancient Egyptian mummies. You're watching Be Explained, and this is Why Europeans Used to Eat Mummies. It all started with a translation error. In ancient Persia, there was a substance called mummia, essentially natural bitumen or asphalt. It was black, sticky, and used as a legitimate medicine for cuts and broken bones. When Europeans arrived in the Middle East, they saw Egyptian mummies that were embalmed with black tar-like resins. They confused the word mummia, the medicine, with the mummified bodies themselves. European doctors decided that if the black tar was good medicine, then the black tar-soaked bodies must be even better. By the 12th century, a gruesome trade began. Apothecaries started grinding up ancient human bodies into a brown powder and selling it as a cure-all. This wasn't a peasant superstition, it was the science of the elite. King Charles II of England famously paid £6,000 for a recipe called the King's Drops. The main ingredient? Human skull, but not just any skull. Medical textbooks from the time recommended Usnea crani, the moss that grew on the skull of a man who had died a violent death, usually by hanging. The logic was horrifyingly simple. They believed that if a man died suddenly, his vital energy was trapped in his flesh. By eating him, you could steal that vitality for yourself. In Denmark and Germany, executioners were often side-hustling as pharmacists. Crowds would gather at the scaffold not just to watch the hanging, but to catch a cup of fresh, warm blood from the dying criminal. It was believed to be the only cure for epilepsy. But they didn't just eat them, they painted with them. If you look at high-end art from the 1700s and 1800s, you are often looking at smeared human remains. There was a pigment called mummy brown. It was prized for its rich, transparent tone. It was made by mixing white pitch, myrrh, and the ground-up muscle tissue of Egyptian mummies. This was common practice until shockingly recently. In the 1960s, yes, the 1960s, the art supplier C. Robertson and Company finally announced they had to stop making the colour because, quote, "we ran out of mummies." The demand for corpses was so high that Egypt actually ran out of quality mummies. So, scam artists stepped in. Unscrupulous merchants would take the bodies of executed criminals, slaves, or disease victims, stuff them with asphalt, dry them in the sun to make them look old, and sell them to European doctors as ancient Egyptian kings. So many Victorian aristocrats weren't even eating ancient pharaohs. They were eating a guy named Frank who died of the plague the week before. We like to look back at history and think we were always rational. But for centuries, the line between medicine and cannibalism was just a matter of price. Thanks for watching. What modern practice do you think people will look back on in horror 300 years from now? Let us know in the comments. See you in the next video.